My thanks to all of our panelists. We are a little tight on time, but there's nothing out of that I would have cut. I loved it. So, who has a question? Mary Rose.
I have a question for Jill Emery. What were those discovery layer systems that you were demoing? Who was using what?
All right. Boston College and Boston University. Boston College is using Alma as their next-gen system with Primo as the upper layer. I don't know what Boston University is using for their main catalog, but they're also using Primo. University of Texas and San Francisco State are using Serial Solutions Summon. WorldCat Local is Portland State, and University of Georgia is using EBSCO's EDS.
Great. And Jill, aren't you doing a session on discovery systems?
I am at 1 o'clock, so.
Okay. Next question. Yes.
Nick Niemeyer from Annual Reviews. It's a question for Till, please. You had a slide showing the time frame of various of your campaign types. The only one that had an endpoint was denial. And I wondered, why was that?
Right. Till, can I get you to restate the question? I'm not sure everybody heard it.
The question was, so when I showed all the different activities that we run, so the only one that seemed to have an endpoint was denials. And indeed, on that slide, it had an endpoint, so that was simply because we actually stopped it for a technical tweak that we did. Now it's up and running again. So I should have presented in a different way, but it's now working again.
Okay. Another question? Yes.
I'd like to ask about a little bit about social media and measuring the impact of social media, because we had a number of different sort of perspectives on social media, both from the Springer point of view, and you said at a number of times, or you said when you were talking about Facebook orders, for example, it's been quote-unquote very successful. You know, one wonders how that relative success is measured. And in terms of in terms of generally more, you know, assessing the impact of sort of various interactions, it's not just a matter of the number of interactions, but it's a matter of the quality of interactions. And these have been, you know, long-standing issues with thinking about, you know, the effort, the level of effort to put into social media, et cetera. And I was just curious what your various takes on that were.
So, so it depends. Whenever we do something on Facebook, so we do it either actively, so that we run the Facebook campaigns, or actually users or readers do it. So whenever we do it on our own, we can add a tracking code, so we know exactly what's going on in terms of the revenue impact. So we have less control, obviously, if users do it, but we still see if visitors come in, where they come from, so because they take the referral with them. So, and obviously the traffic that comes from social media side is increasing dramatically. So that's what we see in numbers. It is hard to describe what the interaction is, what actually drives this traffic, how the traffic is being routed through the network. So that's something that's like a black box so far. So I can't tell you a clear answer on that. But when it comes to the pure numbers, it's still small compared to other levers that we do have, but it's growing faster than others. So it's gaining share.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I might be, yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing. In the wake of Amazon's acquisition of Goodreads, Otis Chandler made a presentation at the IDPF forum, and one of the things that he closed with was a statement that said that while digital had changed publishing over the course of the past 5 years, what he thought was going to change publishing over the next 5 years was centered around the social discovery. So it's not just, it pertains to your question about the social media in the sense that it's hard to track what's the impact of participation on things like Facebook and Twitter, but that is the area where people are having conversations, and it's those conversations that drive interest in the publications that you have.
I guess I'd like to add just a slightly different perspective I'm from an acquisitions perspective, obviously, so that gives me a slightly different viewpoint on this. But I think if we look at the social media as where the conversation is happening, I'm looking at authors as readers as well as buyers of books and whatnot, and that there's that core conversation, and then that is a little more insular, and then there's the broader conversation of how can we reach out to people beyond that aren't actually participating in the conversation, although there is a larger conversation going on. So I think that as an acquisitions editor, looking at the impact of works and what conversations those are generating within that core audience those are the kinds of things I'm interested in trying to quantify, and since there's not a real monetary value to that, that's been challenging to get people to help me do. But I think that's where I would.
No, but it's interesting you say that, because the question of the ROI of these tools always comes up whenever you start to talk seriously about them. And in the case of Springer, well, you have a nice tangible, number. But it also seems to me that it must be very challenging, because there's such an element of contingency in social media. The last thing that you would ever expect to gain interest will get posted on Reddit, and suddenly you have, anyway.
Well, it's an interesting way to indicate what people are interested in reading and where the topics lie, though. And those are the kinds of discoveries that I think we used to have to wait a very long time to discover, where we would, if we waited for someone to publish an article, and then we had to wait for someone to respond to that and whatnot. And now that timeline is much shorter.
Hey, Don, you had a question?
I have more of a comment for Jill O'Neill. If you're interested in local public libraries and new books that they're getting, there is a wonderful system called Wildbrary. The user puts in their zip code, and if the local libraries in the area have subscribed to the system tells you which ones they are. You can pick which ones you choose. Then you get an email every week from those libraries telling you the new books that they have ordered or received. It's a wonderful way to keep up with what the library is adding to their collection. If you click on one, and it takes you to Amazon, where you can read the reviews and decide whether you want to check out the book.
Did you all hear that? Do I need to restate it? Yes, restate. Hand down, no. Okay, you heard. So.
There are so many very cool tools that are available at the moment. One that I didn't have a chance to talk about today, but which I thought was fascinating and lost about 45 minutes one day that I didn't have. But it's called whichbooks.net, and it's actually a UK tool that is in use, I believe, in every single public library system in the UK. But they are focused, again, on supporting discovery of the titles that have trouble surfacing in any other way. So it, again, shows the cover of the title. It is a situation where you can look at what other readers within the system have had to say about the book. It's very visual. It was actually developed by a company that started out in developing furniture for libraries, and they've just kind of expanded out. But it's an interesting approach, and again, they recognize that the emphasis needs to be on those titles that people would not necessarily encounter. They stay away from bestsellers, those books that people can find out about fairly easily, and it's very, again, focused on finding that second layer of titles that come from small and independent presses, and it gives those titles a chance to be discovered and lets people know what is possible what is accessible, what's available. So I think you should be looking at libraries to see what libraries themselves are using to introduce their patrons. And that's true not just at the public libraries or the regional library system level, but also in the academic environment, which Jill Emery was covering. So there's a lot of very interesting software applications, and you just have to play around with them and find out which one works for you as a reader and what may work for you as a publisher in copying, approaches to discovery.
Last question, yeah.
John Fletcher from Canadian Medical Association Journal. This question for Jill and Neil and Jill. You said several times that Scholarly customers are like an F customer, they'll buy stuff. Maybe I get that for books. Could you comment on that for journal subscriptions and pay-per-view for individual journal articles?
Yeah, you are right. So that's true for books, not so true for journal subscription and PPVs, because those are driven by the B2B side. So we don't sell individual subscriptions on Springer.com yet. But you are right. So we have to find out how it works once we start selling those subscriptions. So far, the dynamics of the markets are different. That's right.
How disappointing.
Yeah, maybe it isn't. So maybe we find out that it's true for those buyers as well. So, but that's a big question mark.
Okay.
I would echo.
Go ahead, Jill.
I just wanted to say that I think there's a lot of potential that has not yet been mined in terms of the academic social networks. If you look at something like ResearchGate, academia.edu, some of these sites that are in fact primarily intended for discovery of journal literature, I think that may be at least an opening pathway to reaching out to customers who might normally not be subscribing to a journal, but might not have any way of discovering that the journal even exists. And that's where I think support from the publishers for some of these academic networks could really be leveraged to improve the experience for everybody.
And I just want to jump in there. I mean, I think that's directly why Springer has bought Papers and why Elsevier has now bought Mendeley, is in part so they can mine that information and utilize it to push it back at us in academic libraries. At least that's my very deep-seated suspicion. The other thing I didn't show is that Ex Libris in particular has a product they call BX Recommender, which is a little bit of an unfortunate name, but one of the Boston schools has that in play, and it's actually really awesome in that if somebody pulls up a journal article, it'll say, we saw that you like this one. People who use this also used these 5 or 10 other journal articles. And you can put that link directly into your discovery tool, so you kind of push content that people might not readily discover on their own to them. And a number of libraries are utilizing that tool and experimenting with it.
I just want to add one thing. If you're not familiar with the Digital Public Library of America that was launched in April, it's definitely worth checking out the site, as there's some great tools that are in development about content discovery that will be freely available if they're not already. So, the Digital Public Library of America?
Right. It's what,
It's
DPLA?
DPLA.
Yeah. And my stepson is being funded by OCLC to develop a recommender system for WorldCat. So that's coming soon. Yes. He's a PhD student at the University of Sheffield. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you all.